Guys, I'm finally back because Rec Room has just announced Maker AI, and it's maybe going to be the greatest feature they've ever added. Basically, what it does is let people use their voice to give an AI companion instructions, and then it does things to carry out those instructions. There's a few demo videos of it, and it is actually insane. In these videos, you can see it spawn props and inventions, as well as change their properties, like color and position. In one of the videos, Gribbly has it create entire environments, change the sky, spawn stuff in, and none of that is even the craziest part, because what happens next is mind-blowing. He tells the AI to add circuits to the robot to make it follow him around, and just like that, it springs to life and starts following him. Maker AI can do circuits. That's insane. He tells the AI to give the robot health, make it recoil when it's shot, give points when it dies, and within 5 minutes, he has a game that he's created entirely with his voice. What the heck? This feature obviously has so much potential, and the blog post covers it all. Only 10% of Rec Room players actually create anything, and Maker AI is gonna make creation so much easier and more accessible to aspiring creators. Maker AI could allow 100% of players to build games. They're hoping it'll let creators make something in an afternoon that used to take a whole week, and all of these videos are real, it works with any language, and it's coming out in just a few weeks. So that's about it. Honestly, I just wanted to share the good news, because watching these videos, I just cannot believe what they've created here. Like, how did they even, like, how did it know to make the robot float? Like, when he said, make the robot follow me, it just started floating. That's not what he said. And then when the game starts, it does start following him, but how did the AI know to make it fly? Like, he never said what height it should follow him at, or what speed it should follow him at. He never said it should have this floating idle animation and then only follow him once the game starts. And then later when he says to give it health, it creates a health bar. How did it know to make a visual health bar? He never asked for that. And how did it know where to place it or what it should look like? And then when he starts the game, why is there an empty points display in the top right of his screen before he even mentions making the robot give him points? Like, actually thinking about it now, this video makes absolutely no sense. Sorry, oh, hold on. So I'm actually getting an update here that Maker AI can't actually do circuits. I guess I just got a little confused when in the blog post it said it can create and apply behaviors to objects and set up game rules and objectives. And then in the video, it shows Gribbly asking it to do tasks that require it to create circuits, and then it does those tasks. It's almost as if they set it up to look like it can do circuits, even though it can't. It's almost as if Rec Room is misleading you about Maker AI. But I'd never title a video something like that. I'm sure that whatever else it is doing here is equally as cool and useful to creators, so let's take a look. Apparently what it's doing here is spawning in pre-made inventions of circuit boards that have different functionalities. So, like, there's a health behavior circuit board and a follow behavior circuit board, and then when he tells it to make the robot have health, it spawns in the circuit board for health that was pre-made for the demo. So it's kind of like they did all of the work themselves, and then they had the AI spawn in that work, and then they made it seem like the AI is the one that actually did the work. And you know, I'm a circuiteer, but I cannot fathom trying to create an entire Rec Room game out of pre-made circuit boards, especially ones downloaded from the invention store from other people. There would just be so many issues with the circuits conflicting with each other, and at some point you'd have to make some custom functionality. That just seems entirely impractical for making an actual game. Oh, and here is that same Rec Room dev agreeing with me and saying it would go, quote, probably very poorly if someone actually tried to make a room this way. So that's a little bit weird that their main first video showing off Maker AI implies functionality that self-admittedly would never work outside of the heavily curated video environment. That just feels a little bit like, God, I swear there's a word for it. Like, when someone doesn't disclose the full truth about something. And if it can just spawn in inventions, that's a little bit weird how he says they've been experimenting with having the AI create entire environments, because it can't actually build. Like, it doesn't build things for you. But I'm sure there's still plenty of other cool stuff it can do. So the main functionality of Maker AI is spawning in props and inventions and then manipulating their position and properties contextually in the environment. So then it's like, not even actually generative AI then, right? Like, it's not generating any new output, it's just spawning in things that already exist. When you think about it like that, it's kind of actually a good thing though, right? Because, you know, AI is scary, and if it could do all of that stuff, then it'd be threatening the jobs of creators. This is great. I don't know why they even called it Maker AI when it's not even actually AI. They should have called it something else. Except I guess that there is that voice that replies when you say things. That's definitely generative AI. It's replying just like ChatGPT or whatever.
Rotate it to face me. Well, close.
You're welcome.
And I guess it's also probably using that to interpret what the player is saying. Like, I don't work for Rec Room and 100% know how it works, but what it's probably doing here is sending the player's response through an LLM with the spatial context, and then based on that input, it generates an output that tells Rec Room what action to take. So even though the output is a pretty limited set of actions it can take, it is still, by definition, generative AI. Okay, well, forget what I said earlier. That's a good thing. Even though the current set of things it can do is pretty limited, it'll grow over time. Rec Room just needs to give it the ability to do those things. Maybe in the future, it'll actually be able to do circuits or build with the Maker Pen. This is just an early version, and imagine how helpful it'll be to new creators to have an assistant always by their side. Like, maybe people who would have previously never learned circuits will actually be able to get it now that there's something there to help them. This is gonna be huge. Except for, like, I've used ChatGPT to try and program before, and like 80% of the time, it does not go well. It generates code with errors, and then when you ask it to fix those errors, it makes new ones, all while assuring you it is 100% error-free. Generative AI just lies. It is notorious for lying and being wrong, like, all the time. And I'm a programmer, so I'm actually able to understand the errors that it makes and sometimes fix them. Imagine someone who knows nothing about programming trying to use ChatGPT to code for them. They won't even know where to start on fixing the errors it gives them besides asking it to fix them, and then it'll just make more errors. If generative AI multiple years into its existence still can't do programming in widely used languages, what makes you think it's gonna be able to do Rec Room circuits at all? And in regards to building, it's the same thing. Go to ChatGPT right now and tell it to make ASCII art of the head of a dog. Maybe you'll get something that looks like this, which, by the way, definitely isn't ASCII art that was made by someone else and then directly stolen by ChatGPT as if it made it. Surely that's not something that would happen or have implications on everything else I'm talking about in this video. Anyways, go ahead and ask it to add a body to the dog. You might notice it's not very good at it. And then go ahead and ask it to add a tail to the dog. I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. Obviously, this is not a one-to-one example, but what makes you think that this exact same thing wouldn't happen in Rec Room with Maker AI if they tried to actually let it build things? Programming or visual art, it just doesn't work. And you want to know how I know it doesn't work? Because to make it look like it works in their damn promotional video, they had to fake it. If they actually had some magical technology better than any other generative AI that exists right now that was able to do circuits and art flawlessly like they show in this video, then why didn't they just actually show it instead of faking it? You might think, oh, but they're just still working on it. It'll get there eventually. Right, kind of like how they're still working on replacing the old UI, which is something they started 5 years ago. Except this time, instead of the solution being to just give a UI designer time to finish the last few remaining pages, the solution is to push the boundaries of generative AI beyond what the tech world has ever seen. And let me tell ya, Rec Room ain't gonna be the one to do that. Rec Room, if you ever get Maker AI working, doing circuits, and building as seamlessly as you show in this video, with 0 mistakes, I will give you back all of the income I've made from your platform since 2020 as an apology. Maybe you could use it to hire back the 16% of employees you just fired. Sorry, I forgot I'm supposed to be, like, pretending to support this and argue with myself. One more point on this real quick. Even in a magical world where Rec Room does have a super advanced AI that can do these things, would that even really help new creators? Sure, anyone could go into a blank room and say, make me a costume park with 5 Huggy Wuggies, 22 Sprunkies, and 68 overpriced keys, and it would make it for them. But that's not, like, teaching them how to build. Someone asking an AI to do circuits for them isn't teaching them circuits. You'll still not know how any of the systems work, and you'll spend more time trying to figure it out than if you actually just learn how to do circuits. I only really see this as a useful learning tool in a very, very limited capacity, and certainly not in the context they're showing here. Okay, forget the promises and forget the future potential, because what it can do right now is still cool. it might be way less cool than they made it out to be, but being able to spawn and move props and inventions without needing to dig through Maker Pen menus is going to make things slightly faster. It will be, at least, a little bit useful. Okay, I'm dropping this stupid bit. I even have problems with this basic functionality. Maker AI, turn on the flames. When you tell Maker AI to put that couch against that wall, how does it know what wall or couch you're talking about? Yes, it has some spatial and conversational context. It can maybe tell what wall you're looking at or what couch you were recently interacting with. But the context isn't always going to be perfect, and it's inevitably going to make some mistakes. How often it makes mistakes, we'll just have to wait and see. I don't doubt that they've put quite a bit of effort into the context it gets to try and reduce the mistakes as much as possible. It is far more feasible to me that they've made a decent AI that can execute on these basic actions compared to the feasibility of, like, building with circuits and shapes like I was talking about earlier. But just because it's more feasible doesn't mean I don't have concerns. First, when it releases, you're only going to be able to use it in a dorm room to start, which is a highly controlled environment that is not at all representative of the uncontrolled UGC room environments that it's actually going to be used in. Even if it releases and works perfectly in the dorm room, I'm still going to be skeptical until we're able to see it in actual UGC rooms. That'll be the real test. Second, I would have to assume that they didn't train a unique LLM on Rec Room. Like, it's probably just ChatGPT or some equivalent that they told a bunch of stuff about Rec Room. It's kind of like how the old coach bot in the Rec Room Discord could give information about Rec Room that they'd fed it, but it also just made stuff up all the time. I find it hard to believe that an off-the-shelf model is going to perfectly understand Rec Room context. Third, how long does it take to process a command that you give to it? Like, in the videos, it replies instantly, but that's not really how generative AI works. It takes time to move and process the data, and I don't think it's insane to assume that this video might be a little bit exaggerated in that aspect as well. You know the humane AI pin that takes like 10 seconds to do anything after you speak to it? I think it is a very real possibility that Maker AI is equally slow, which would essentially invalidate it because in that time you could just go and spawn the thing yourself. And fourth, there are so many issues here that I haven't even touched on yet, like ethical issues for one. I don't want to repeat it too much because I'm sure you've all heard about generative AI being trained on unethically sourced data, and like, no one seems to even care anymore. But I do, and then people make me seem insane for caring. And is it not deeply disturbing for a disembodied AI voice to whisper in your ear, "I think that this room needs a bookshelf," when it knows nothing of creativity or Rec Room or how things look or anything? And can we stop humanizing AI, please? And also, as a Rec Room video partner, I got early access to a bunch of information on Maker AI, and I can only talk about the currently public information, and that is all I can say on that. The point is, there are a lot of other things we are brushing past here, but for now, let's assume that all of that is tied up in a nice little bow, and Maker AI works perfectly. You can use it in any room. It's able to spawn, move, and modify props and inventions, and it does all of these actions based on the voice commands you give it in a relatively quick time frame. Assuming all of that, then I can see it being maybe kind of useful sometimes. It would certainly save some time here and there for basic actions. So congratulations, Rec Room. I concede you did it. The big feature that you probably spent a bunch of money and time developing is maybe kind of okay. Great. I'm so glad that you guys did all of that to seem cool to investors in the tech space instead of doing literally anything to help your struggling game. You delivered on your promise. Except you really didn't. Maker AI is kind of a gimmick. Maker AI is not going to do half the things they've implied it will. In its current state, the messaging around Maker AI is insanely misleading, almost to a malicious degree. I hope I've convinced you throughout this video that these things are true. And here's a fun thing that happened while editing. Roblox announced their own generative AI thing just a few days ago. So how much you want to bet that Rec Room just caught wind of this coming soon and we're like, oh god, we gotta get our own generative AI thing out and beat them to the punch? That would certainly explain why it feels so rushed and unfinished and overpromised, because it is. Rec Room has a long history of overpromising and under-delivering. Just this last week, they changed it so that Rec Room Plus players get 6,000 tokens a month instead of 1,500 tokens a week. And out of either malice or stupidity, didn't mention that change would mathematically decrease the total amount of tokens that subscribers get per year. Me and others bring this issue up to them, and then later that day, there's an exciting new announcement that Rec Room Plus subscribers will now be getting 6,500 tokens per month instead of just 6,000. They're increasing it as one of their steps to make Rec Room Plus an even better deal. How generous of them. Except they, again, didn't mention that this increase is just bringing it back to the amount it was before they made the mistake of decreasing it. I could bring up a dozen other examples of stuff like this happening. I already have in other videos. I already mentioned the layoffs. When I first heard about it, obviously it was bad, but I believed that this was a great chance for Rec Room to start turning things around. I thought it was genuinely possible for them to stop the confusing, misleading messaging, start actually improving their product, and come back stronger than ever. But this Maker AI announcement that suffers from all the pitfalls they've had for a while has once again dropped my confidence. I don't know how this happens, man. When I was in Seattle, I talked to a bunch of Rec Room employees that were smart, creative, and passionate. It genuinely made me feel like this game was in good hands. And then they go and fire a bunch of them. Ryu, Zizzy, Marisa, Jay. They all did so much for this game and this community, more than most of you will ever know. And now I can't help but feel like things are really, really bad. I don't know. Maybe it's finally time for me to do what everyone else is doing and make my hour-long quitting Rec Room and talking about everything I didn't talk about before video. But I guess before I even consider that, I have to finish this video. For almost a whole year now, you've haunted me. You've stalled my upload schedule and my motivation. Not anymore. I'm finishing you. I'm finishing the Rec Video Chat video if it's the last damn thing I do.